Buzz, babies, and welcome back to another episode of Blake's Buzz. And this week, I have a very cool duo of creatives. They got a new comic book from Image. It's called Petrol Heads, and you all need to get it on your radar. Not only do you need to get it on your radar, you need to hit up your shops. You need to pre-order it, right? Because pre-ordering comic books helps. We keep saying this over and over again. Nobody fucking listens to us. So start listening, baby. Anyway, I've got Rob Williams, Pye Parr in the house. Oh my God, I'm so stoked. Rob has written for everybody. Marvel. He's roamed the streets of Gotham. He's written Judge Dredd. He's been at Image. He's got tons of stuff going on. And Pye is dropping some of the most gorgeous illustrations I've seen in a comic book in a hot minute. Oh my God, this book is so gorgeous, guys. I'm so excited to talk about it. How are you both doing today?
I'm very good, mate. Yeah, that was an excellent intro. I was kind of worried about that. Rob has worked for everyone, and Pye has worked for no one. However, that was equally as good.
Yeah. Rob has been fired by everybody. Pye has been fired by nobody.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a better spin.
All right, yeah, I could edit that in post. Rob has been fired by
most people, whether it's comics or other jobs that I've had in my time. No, we're good, thanks, and yeah, we're glad you like the book. It is a beautiful looking book, and that's all down to Pye.
Yeah, it's I was scoping your eShop, Pye, and the prints and stuff you're selling too, man. I mean, goodness gracious, y'all need to check out this. If Pye's name isn't on way more covers in the coming months, years, I'm just gonna be mad at comics in general, because once you all get a look at this book, the only thoughts in your brain are gonna be, I need more Petrol Heads and I need more Pye Parr in my life everywhere I look, because it just makes everything better. Oh man, because I did Google you, and I mean, I found your art, right, but I didn't find like a lot of publications from you. So like, where did you just like pop up from the ether and you were like, yeah, I'm one of the best fucking artists around, you guys haven't found me till now? Like, where did you come from? How are you a human? Like, fill us in, Pye.
I think I've made the mistake of sort of spreading myself a bit thin, so I do a little bit of everything, which is why I don't end up having any books out, because I'm a graphic designer by trade, so I do the graphic design for 2000 like the UK comic.
Okay.
I do a bit of art for them, and then I did a bit of posters, and then I did a bit of fine art, and I did a bit of it. I never really kind of pushed any of it, and now I've finally got one thing that people can see, and it's very nice.
It's so nice. It's the way you draw automobiles and scenery and robot. Like, I just can't. It's so like the colors are so like punchy and warm and inviting, even though this world you've both made is not that at all. Like, it's very constrictive and closed off, and everyone's trapped, and the notion of like, are you free or are you a prisoner, right, that we kind of play with later on in the issue, is very, very intriguing. Where I get real quick, Rob, you want to like hit us with let's pretend we're at a con and I'm walking by your table and you're like, hey, I need your money, buy my comic, give me that quick pitch.
Well, it's about drag racing robots in the future is the quickest as I can do it, really. But so basically, the longer one is the fact that drag racing robots in the future, there was a race of them called the Petrol Heads, and humanity lives in these domed cities because there's been a climate emergency. And there's only some of humanity is left. So they put on these extreme sports to keep the people interested and entertained, and to stop them going insane, as we say at one point in issue 1. So when we reached the story, the Petrol Heads have become obsolete because basically someone realized they were belching out petrol fumes into a domed city, and someone went, that's really not the best idea. So they've all been sent off to a part of the city called the smog zone. And then our other main character is a 12-year-old girl called Lupa, whose dad is the most brilliant scientist in the city. And he thinks he's come up with a way to reverse the climate emergency. But the robots who are in control of the city don't want him to do that. So they go on the run, and they just happen to hide out in Petrol Head's garage. And then from that point on, it's kind of it's a road movie and lots of racing, some shooting. What else have we got? Robots, lots of robots, Yeah, it's just it's a good time road movie. It's kind of like but with robots. I've said robots, right?
So I think you said robots a couple times. It's
Definitely robots.
Yeah, we did concentrate on that.
so
Really.
good.
Somebody else asked us about, like how do the people live in the city, and we don't really explore that in it because you only really meet a couple of humans. The rest of them are kind of, all a bit NPC like.
Yeah, we show a flashback to sort of when the petrol heads were at the peak of their powers, of their popularity, and they've all been designed to have their own toy ranges and sort of they've been designed by marketing teams to appeal to certain demographics. But our main guy, Petrol Head, was made from all the spare parts, and he was just so badly designed. No one knew what to call him, so they didn't even give him a name. So he's just called Petrol Head. So he's kind of the worst design you could possibly have for a streamlined racing driver. But he kind of gets by because he cheats a lot. But
he still looks cool. I love how everybody talks about how ugly he is and stuff. It is like, he looks fucking dope. Like he looks awesome.
Yeah, that's right. That's the thing, isn't it? Like he's been cynically designed by us to be the coolest looking one.
And he smokes. I love that he's like a robot smoking. Just makes like so he's smoking and he's got an exhaust pipe like right behind his head. I love.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love how he just puts out the pollution.
Defensive enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it was a pretty basic central idea. It was like when the moment we went, well, he's Petrol Head because he belches petrol out of his head. It was just like, okay. So it all kind of came together at that point.
I'm really stoked to see I love this premiere issue, and I think premiere issues are hard to pull off, and it's especially when you're building a new world like you guys are. But look, you got a few extra pages, you got some amazing covers, and you got Pye's art, which just literally like grabs you by the face and like won't let you turn away from the book. Like once it's open, you are anchored there and from start to finish. And so like as a first issue, I mean, I feel like you can't ask for more. Like this world, these characters, the situations that we find ourselves in, the politics. I really like the politics and the policing and the secret scientists that are like controlling this world. There's so much happening, and we get a pretty solid grasp of it in the first issue, right? And so the promise of the second issue, and that, like when the road movie starts, right, and the road and the chase and the violence and the action, I can't wait to see what you guys do. Like we get a little taste of it in the flashback in the race scene in the beginning, right? But I feel like that's the taster, and we don't really know what to fucking expect. I feel like you guys are gonna floor us. You're gonna, no pressure, right? But that's just what I feel, and I'm so excited. Like Rob, I'm excited to see where you take these characters and Pye. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I can't wait to see what you draw in this series, man. I'm just like, I am stoked. And I was so stoked to like get to read this, or like, no, this hasn't even gone out on Image's press list or anything yet. And I was just like, fucking Rob reached out to me online and he wanted to talk. And I was like, what is happening? This is weird. Like, are you sure? So I'm just so like, I feel so special and excited and honored to like get to read your book early and talk about it and hype it up and then get to talk to the creators about it too. Like you guys made my fucking day. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh mate, you made my day with that. That's I hope everyone who picks it up thinks exactly the same.
If everyone gets, we get that reaction every time, and then we're laughing. But it's it's kind of when you set up a first issue, you just kind of you've got to grab people quick. There's so much competition out there, and the people are going to pick up flick through a few pages. But we want it to come in. We start with a sort of a little quiet little character beat with Petrol Head, which kind of says, I think, a lot about who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're into the flashback of a race, and it's a gorgeous double-page splash. You turn the page, and it's just like, wow. And it's immediately, you get, one of the things Pye does so well is convey sort of a sense of speed and energy and racing, and you really feel like these cars are moving, and so we're into the race sequence, and it's it's full on. And then you see Petrol Head is quite happy to cheat to get ahead,
mm-hmm.
and cynical, and the rest are kind of playing the game, and he's kind of like the Han Solo archetype. I think he's kind of like the grumpy one who you know there's a good heart in there somewhere, but essentially there's a lot of grump as well.
And instead of Chewbacca, he's got a little robot bird with a great personality as well.
But again, that's another thing that tells you about him, really. The fact that, you know, he could easily be like almost a bad guy, and that he's a cheater and he's a grump and he's fairly antisocial. But the fact that he makes like a sort of very beautiful metal rose for his dead mate, and he's got like his only companion is quite a pretty thing. Tells you a lot about him, really.
Yeah, he makes Dave. We should explain. He's got a best friend who's a little robot bird called Dave, and Dave's quite sarcastic. But Dave is also his conscience, as you find out going through. So kind of Petrolhead made his own conscience, basically, to sit on his shoulder occasionally and go, no, you know, don't do that. So I think that says a lot about who he is as a character. But in terms of his look, he's a big bruiser. He's kind of like he's Ben Grimm from the Fantastic Four, or he's Hellboy, or you know, he's that kind of type. He's like an old, beaten down heavyweight boxer. Really doesn't want to go back into the game. And then as our story moves on through issue 1, you kind of go, he's forced to do what he does best, which is drive.
There's a really great moment. There's a lot of really great moments, but you kind of touched on it, Rob, and so did you, Pye. The softness of Head, right? They call him Head for short in the book sometimes, and but he has these kind of soft, touching features, and there's some really big emotional beats mixed in with this very much high octane, intense premiere issue, which I thought worked really well to add, you know, a lot of like character depth and just like added to the tension too, right? Like, you know, this is a harder world for both humans and robots than maybe we're initially led to believe, right? And like what they all sacrifice to live here, basically. That's very, very smart storytelling from both of you, how you kind of like sprinkled these little moments in. One of my favorite of all the things in this book, one of the maybe one of the best comic book pages I've read in a hot minute, guys, was when he's talking to Dave, and Dave's asked him if he believes in God, and he's like, I don't really know. And he's like, well, you know, like if you think about it, you're kind of my God because you made me, and that's depressing. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, yeah, I was like, wow, like it was such a huge moment with like simple dialogue over a complex topic, right? And even Pye, your art is very honed in and less, you know, a 9 or 12 panel grid, right? Like, so like smaller panels, closer views, not as much detail and not as bombastic as the other issues. And the way you guys structured that and landed it, and just that page was just like, it was a very big wow moment in a book that's full of wow moments. But this one stuck out because it was emotional and philosophical and thought provoking. And again, like, I just can't fucking believe how good this issue is. Like, I can't wait. Oh my God. Like, if you guys have more issues done, like, send them to me. I swear to God, I won't tell anybody, but like, I don't know. Like, I can't wait for the second issue. And I haven't gotten this excited about a comic book in a while. And I know you guys are my guests, right? I'm not trying to like grease you up for ratings. I'm being legit honest. This is why people listen to me, because I am very honest in the books I get excited about. But I'm just wowed, guys. You're doing something really different. It looks different, it feels different, and it acts different. You know, and
it's good to hear. Thanks, man. I mean, it's I mean, I think it's kind of partly. Oh, Pye, you should talk about. I mean, you said before your art influences are more people like Mobius than perhaps from a traditional American market comic.
Yeah. I don't really read very much American comics. You know, like I read all the big famous ones that you should read, but that's it. I've never really been a DC or a Marvel guy. I don't read any of that kind of stuff. But I mean, that page you're talking about with the 9-panel grid is really nice, and there's a few of those when we'll kind of slow it down and let them have a little bit of a chat, and then it goes off again on these big sort of, and I love the fact that you can have that rubbing up against, you know, literally the previous page he zaps a cat with a laser that comes out of his butt. and again, that's one of the like nice things about that first issue is you got enough space to have all those different things going on at the same time, and it's yeah, there's lots going on in that first issue.
Yeah, it's kind of
great.
When you come in with a racing, ostensibly this is like a racing comic about racing robots, but it's like it's the characters of any story make or break it. You know what I mean as well. So it's kind of the nice thing about doing a double-sized issue 1, which is only $4.99. I should point out, which is very reasonable.
Yeah,
a mere $4.99.
Indeed, yeah. Is we had enough room to let a lot of things breathe and to sort of to give all these characters their own little moments, and so and then issue 2 again will start. It's largely them running, but there's some great little character bits in it throughout.
We both kind of. I remember finishing the first issue and thinking, this is the best thing I've done. This is great. Like I really enjoyed doing it. The script's great. It looks good. I'm sort of happy with it. And then started work on the second one, and then we both went and reread it recently and texted each other saying like, "This is great. Like I think the second issue is better." It's
Oh
so
shit! Let's go.
Hopefully you think so too. There's some really good kind of driving bits in it, and there's again, it's more of the same really. There's like there's heartfelt bits, there's exciting stuff. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted it to be a book that's fun, and it's like Pye's colors. It's colorful, it's fun. We wanted it to be accessible to pretty much anyone. We didn't want to, it's meant to be all ages. You can enjoy this book no matter whatever age you are. I think we've done that. It's got good pace, and I think it's turned out better than I thought it was going to turn out. Put it that way. So. Yeah.
I got a question for both of you. So like Rob, when you're putting these emotional beats and these slow moments, right, that really kind of break open the character shells and let us explore these people as people and characters, right? When it's like the robots, right, and you're writing dialogue, are you thinking about, because they don't have a lot of physical they don't emote, right, like a human-like character does, right? And so are you thinking about that when you're writing these heavier moments, or are you just like, yeah, fuck it, Pye'll figure it out? And Pye, when you get moments like those, and because you pull it off, like especially in the beginning with the flower, and you can tell like Head is upset and he's moved and he's a little raw in that moment, like how are these moments that like you sweat over when you're drawing and you're trying to like make this emotionless machine emotional?
There's a few bits where in later on Rob's like, oh, obviously he can't laugh, but he's going to be laughing in this panel. I think, like, how the fuck am I going to do that? But actually, like it's got to be body language. Actually, one of the things I do is cheat a little bit. So I will, even though obviously he's got a big metal head, I will adjust the kind of proportions slightly to change his kind of expression a little bit. Mostly it's like body language, or showing it from a certain angle. So if he's smiling, show it from above to give more of a curve to his helmet, or it's kind of I cheat basically.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. I put in my scripts in the panel descriptions, and if I'm writing Judge Dredd, and Judge Dredd is notoriously stoic and doesn't actually show any emotion whatsoever. But I will write what emotions they're feeling very often. I just do into the panel descriptions, and then it's kind of, it might not sort of show in the dialogue per se, but to me, the thing I love about working with really good artists is you can write an emotion, you can have a dialogue suggesting something else, and suddenly it's got a different layer to it. Do you know what I mean? So I think when you get a character like Petrol Head, who on the surface is grumpy and leave me alone and this type of stuff, but I think Pye really sells through body language and the tone, how it's all the page and the panel is set up and the angles and things. We get a sense of what he's feeling, even though he's a robot. And same for Dave.
Interesting that we've had a few times when I've gone too far on the humans, so obviously you get used to sort of slightly overselling it on the robots because they've got no facial expression. But then we've had a few times where I've been drawing people and you're like, no, that's too happy or too sad or too shocked, and you just can't just calm it down a bit. Or it's going to become a joke when it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
That's funny. Now, how did you guys team up? Like, Pye, how'd you end up on this project?
I basically just like drawing cars, so I kind of during lockdown got utterly sick with all the work that I had on, And just thought, like, why am I freelancing? I hate everything I'm doing. Why don't you just do something you like? So I did some car posters, which are on my shop, of
Yeah,
like just
awesome.
robots and cool looking racing cars. And Rob saw them. We've known each other for quite a while, and said, "Oh, do you fancy turning these into a comic?" And I absolutely did, and that's how it started.
Yeah, it was
That's
just
so cool.
those posters that Pye did. I saw them, and I was just like, they looked like a comic. None of those characters are in. I don't think any of them are in.
No, I've kind of fudged some of them. So one of the cars ends up turning up.
Right.
But and actually, in issue 3, when you see some of the old retired petrol heads sort of floating in tanks, one of them in the background is one of those posters.
Okay. But I'm not. They looked like it looked like a comic already. So I just went, well, look, have you thought about doing putting together a world and a narrative and all these kind of things? And it kind of went from there. And then it was a case of like just coming up with our cast and what the narrative drive was and all that stuff. But in terms of sort of the tone and everything, they were all in those initial posters that Pye did. The colors as well, like you could see that the colors were like, wow. So it's like, well, this is exactly what the book should look like.
Yeah, that was like I hadn't really designed them to be screen print, but I was deliberately limiting my palette when I did those posters just to make them a bit more graphic and interesting to look at, and that kind of ended up informing how we did the colours. So the first image I did for the comic, long before any of the others, was the very first page where he stood there with his shoulders hunched, and it's all basically grey and orange. And yeah, that sort of flowed from there really, and I'm quite pleased we stuck with that because it really has got like a unique feel, hopefully.
Yeah, I love the orange and the warmness like throughout the issue. It works on like a couple different levels. Like when we see like outside the city, it puts off like a hazardous vibe, and then like when we're racing and in the city and things are happening, it builds like it helps build like that tension, that fire, that heat, that momentum, and the colors do so much. It's fucking brilliant, basically, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I know everybody listening is probably like, these guys paid Blake to love this comic. I just really like it. I really, really like this book a lot.
I just say to your listeners, but Pye and I, we have no money, so we can't afford that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I couldn't afford to pay anyone to love it. So
exactly.
So Pye, how do you draw? Are you like digital, or are you pen and paper? Like how you making this stuff?
All digital, yeah. Okay. So yeah, normally I'll try and do something that exists just because it's good for the soul to create something that you can hold.
Yeah.
But before I started this, I just thought, no, sod it, just get over yourself and do it all on the computer, and I think it turned out better for it, to be honest.
Do you think the digital, because I've kind of noticed it, and like especially colors, like it's like even reading it, like when you're reading digital comics, like on these new tablets, like mine has an OLED screen on it, and they like colors look ridiculous. You can like turn up the brightness and have to like squint while you read these things, right? And it pops differently than a page. But do you think, or can you do more with colors specifically, like digitally, than you think you can, like physically?
In some ways, yes. In other, like for I think a long time, like digital colors tried to ape what you could do with real stuff.
Okay.
And actually, I think they've come to the point where they, or they have a long time ago. They are their own thing now. They're entirely separate. You can get different effects, and and in this book particularly, I kind of lean into what you can do on a computer that you can't do if you work traditionally.
Okay.
I kind of, one of my favorite sort of traditional looking colors are when you've got very washed inks, which is something that is much harder to do on a computer. Much more subtle kind of paint jobs. But if you're going for every color's turned up to 13, then that's like this comic is. That's something it does very well.
But it's also like, I mean, I used to be like really anti-digital, but then like when I got into press and quickly, it's just like most of my reading now is PDF because that's what people send me, right? And
you mean like actually like physically reading it digitally as opposed
to reading stuff digitally. I used to be kind of against it. Like I was a purist, right? I was like, no, like I need to hold things in my hand, and I like that new book smell, or like when you buy a new Marvel omnibus and it smells like fucking paint, and you're like, am I losing brain cells reading this? I might be. But it's I used to be like, and I love the hardcovers. I love fancy hardcovers, oversized, prestige, deluxe editions and stuff. But like my views have changed a lot digitally, just because of technology, because of the way these new screens are, and it is convenient, to throw 10,000 comic books essentially in your backpack and go somewhere, right? Or go on vacation or something.
And also, if the person who's doing the comic is working digitally, you're looking at a much closer version of what they're seeing when they're working on it than you are.
Oh yeah.
If you're buying a printed one, like the colors do flatten down a bit. I have the same dilemma with digital stuff, like with books as well. I buy tons and tons of stuff on my Kindle, and in a previous life, I spent a long time doing publishing design and book covers and all that. So basically doing myself out of a job by buying all this, spending my wages from that by buying Kindle books.
I used to tell people, I was like, how do people know how smart you are if you don't have like bookshelves full of books when they come over? Like that was my issue. I was like, you got to have all these things on display so that like people come over and they're like, wow, this guy fucking reads. Now I feel dumb. Like you got to get that power play going, at the dinner party.
Like I read a lot. I read books a lot in the bath. I'm not taking an iPad in the bath with me. I mean, that's too close to suicide, right? If I drop that in the bath or something, it's. If I drop it in the bath, it just goes into it does the fan thing. That's
yeah. maybe ding a corner.
My Kindle in the bath. I've done that. I'm brave enough to do that. I mean, you have to very carefully get in so you got one dry hand. That's the.
This is getting way too complicated.
Yeah, I know. Also eating, like, because you can't with comics anyway, right? Because of the collectible nature, like you can't like eat and read a comic book because you could get like grease and shit on it.
I thought you were going to say I don't eat in the bath.
Eat in the bath.
No, I don't eat in the bathroom. I don't eat. I'm not there yet. I'm not the.
Shout out to Lee Gallagher there. Pizza in the bath.
I just I mean, like you get a nice Sunday roast in the bath. I could see that work.
I got into an Instagram feed the other day, which was just like shower foods, and people suggest things that he can eat in the shower, and then he takes a photo and rates them out of 10.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of like the shower beers, right, and the shower drinks. So I guess why not add a waterproof breakfast sandwich to your day drinking, I guess, and just do it all in the shower first thing in the morning.
That person spends too long in the shower, I would suggest.
Your water bill's insane.
Yeah,
but I can understand bath drinks. That seems like I quite regularly have to take the wife a cup of tea or a gin and tonic when she's having a bath.
Yeah. Or
like a shower, it seems quite a stressful place to have a drink.
Yeah. In and out quick, man. Come on.
Yeah, no one has time for that shit. Yeah. Especially you guys. You guys got deadlines now, right? So you can't waste too much time in the shower. You got to get to work. You got to get these.
Just leave the shower. Just go to work. I mean, I'm in the end of the garden anyway. I don't see any humans.
I've got to fit my roast dinner, my lasagna in the bath. I've got to write my comics.
It's too much stuff. Life's too short for that shit. Yeah. Oh my god. So like when you guys were doing this, like getting together and kind of like, pre-gaming, getting ready to work on this, like how much of the world, like Rob, did you have built and like Pye or did Pye, did you kind of get to play with that? Did you guys work on this together, like in the just like the world building and the cityscapes and character designs and these cars and everything? Like Robert, I like what are you like as a script writer? Like, are you like real detailed and you're like listen to me or get the fuck out, or are you just like do you have like that kind of Tom? Is that how he is? Okay.
Yeah. And I put on the German accent when I speak during my calls as well for some reason. I don't know why. No, I mean basically, look, it's creator owned, and that was one of the nice things about it is it's like it's all been built up by us along the way, and we did a lot of work on it before. But the nature of it, doing a book for Image is you've got to have about 3 issues in the can before
okay.
they solicit. So. And then Pye found, I forget, sort of some concept art recently, and we've been working on this for maybe 2 years, something like that. So, Yeah, it's but some stuff you go into, you get nailed down, and some stuff is organic and just builds as you go. And I think there's a line in the script which is quite a throwaway line about like when you first see the ozone, which is the domed city, which is beautiful, sort of double page spread that Pye's done. And then I wrote something like one of the 6 domed cities containing what's left of humanity, and you write a little line like that, and suddenly you go, hey, there's probably about 6 graphic novels at least in that line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just built a world very, very quickly there, and established some rules. But then, and one of the fun things about it is just as we've written issue 2, worked on issue 2, issue 3, issue 4, new characters keep popping up, and they they suggest ways the story could go, which is one of the lovely things about doing this, really. It's always a mix, I think, of like some good, a lot of it is solidly planned at the start, and a lot of it is made up as you go, and some of the made up as you go stuff is the best stuff. There's a character in issue 2 who pops up called Satnav Sid, who was not in any of the planning whatsoever, just appeared, and he might be my favorite character in the entire thing.
Well, like Dave the Bird is exactly the same thing. He wasn't in the pitch that we did originally.
Oh, really?
But I think that the best stuff happens, which is what's happened here, is when you sort of take it in turns to be inspired by what the other person has done. So, like the whole thing came out of the fact that I did these posters, but I had nothing to do with the creation of the world. That was absolutely Rob's idea. But then, like he'll write something and I'll be inspired to draw, say, a car or a robot or whatever in a certain way. And then, like, based off that, oh, you're good at that. Let's lean into that, and it's kind of developed in that way. Like the story and the kind of creation of the characters, that's absolutely Rob. Like I can't. Obviously, I've had an input on the way they look, but he is the sort of driving force behind the story.
But it plays off each other, like you say, because basically, then the moment sort of Pye drew Petrol Head or sort of like his characters like Hybrid, who's like a bit of a sort of idiot racing driver who Petrol Head hates. And just you see the way Pye's drawn it, and you kind of go, oh, okay, and that leads you down a road of writing it a certain way. So it all feeds itself. It's which is great. But then you get some of the best stuff comes out of the happy accidents, which is, I think, when I got to sort of Act 3 of issue 1, when we meet Petrol Head in his garage when he's living alone. I think I kind of thought, oh shit, he's got no one to talk to, and that's why Dave was invented. And suddenly Dave ends up being this amazing character in his own right. But
I hadn't really considered that. I suppose to drive the plot at that point, you'd have to be thinking to himself, and that sort of be. It wouldn't be much,
it wouldn't be particularly fun if it's just inner thoughts. But him, going back and forth, the sort of verbal jousting with like a sarcastic robot bird is way more funny. And you get in things like that page about, you made me, and do you believe in God and all that type of stuff. And suddenly Dave becomes this, this great character in his own right. And so I'm always a little sort of, if people ever tell me that they plan everything meticulously before they start, and that's how it is, I always kind of a little sort of, really? Because I, for me at least, writing doesn't work like that. It's a bit of both.
I agree wholeheartedly. I do interviews the same way. When I first started doing this, and my friends, like my real life friends aren't like big nerds. So like that, one of the best things about doing this the last couple of years is getting to talk with awesome creators like you guys, getting to read awesome books all the time, but like connecting with the community and like finding people that I could like actually talk comic book, because like everybody went and saw like Guardians of the Galaxy, right? But none of my friends have ever read Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's like, anyways, long story short, they support the podcast and think what I do is cool. But my buddy asked me one time, I was getting ready to interview my first, like one of my first big interviews was Brian Edward Hill. And I felt so lucky because I emailed the press contact, and the press contact was like, oh yeah, send us your podcast metrics, we'll see. And I was like, oh, they're not going to talk to me, because I was like brand new, like 5 people listen to my show. So I reached out to Brian on Twitter, and I was like, hey Brian, like, would you want to do an interview. And oddly enough, it was for his book Chariot, which is also like about cars and a big bombastic sci-fi world and stuff. And he was like, oh yeah, sounds awesome. And anyways, I'm like super fucking nervous, right? I'm like, oh my God. And my buddy's like, what questions are you going to ask him? And I was like, I don't ask questions. Like, I was like, I don't write. I feel like that's just the start of a boring interview, right? Like which apparently I'm rare in this. I actually read the books that I talk about. I've heard from numerous guests now that like there are a lot of podcast hosts and show hosts that like blatantly don't read the stuff of the guests they have on the show, which like blew my mind. I couldn't believe that. But I actually read the stuff from you guys, and like, but I kind of pick up like the vibes, right? Like we start talk about whatever. And if the conversation, delineates or, devolves or whatever, like I can hop back into the book, I can be like, okay, what about this moment? What about that moment? And because I'm terrified of dead air, right? Most of my shows are live too. So like if I say something real fucking stupid and this gets awkward, I can edit that out later when I post it next week, right? But if I'm doing live shows and you get that moment of like, or like when someone says something that's supposed to be funny but no one laughs, right? It's like you can't edit that. You have to just sit there and deal with it. And so that like terrifies me. And so I very much like kind of like figure out research you guys, read what I can, and then pick up the vibes and go from there. And which is usually why I think that's why people like my show, because we talk about the books, but it'll spiral and people tell stories and it gets weird and goofy sometimes. But yeah, it's I feel the same way. Like when you're writing, if you plan everything out and you keep that outline so rigid and then ignore the inspiration that may hit you later, like that's a disservice to the narrative. I feel like.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's always, I mean, I can bang on about theme in writing quite a lot. And I think you have an idea of that going in, but then very often you'll be halfway through and you'll kind of go, I'm not actually writing about that at all. I'm actually writing about something else, which is one of the, I think, really interesting things about writing. Almost becomes like therapy in a lot of ways. I think Stephen King talks in writing. He says he doesn't really know what the theme of his books are until about, he's near the end or sort of in the final act of writing it or something. But you need these little guide. I do anyway. You need these little sort of guidelines. You go, I think I'm going there, and you might veer off in different places, but you've got a pretty good idea of where you're going at the very least. Because other than that, it would be a blind panic, and you would just kind of every page be like, oh, too many options.
Well, and like, life will fuck you if you live like that, right? If you make a plan, because life's not going to let you have a plan. It's going to throw roadblocks at you. It's going to put shit in your way. And if you just like walk up to it and keep trying to walk against this roadblock that they threw at, it's like, no, you have to turn, you have to move around this thing and recalibrate and keep going. You have to live life like that, or you will be stagnant and stuck. And literature and storytelling is supposed to reflect life, even if it is something as crazy as something like full of robots and crazy race cars and a new age civilization, which, I mean, shit, we may be on our way to, because all we want to do is throw pollution into the air and laugh at God and pretend like it doesn't matter or whatever. But, I mean, I feel like we're on the verge of bubble cities, basically. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything, but we can't be that far away from it.
We're part of this sort of, we're bringing the information through slowly. We're part of it, feeding it to the masses so they're used to it. There's going to be giant pod racing robots. It's that type of thing is strange, but it's part of a happy accident, like you're saying. Like I never would have thought that I'd be writing a book about racing robots. It's like that's more Pye's thing than mine, but it's there you go.
I'm glad it happened. Like however it happened, I'm just glad it happened. Now Pye, and I know it's a little different for an artist, right? And you very much seem to have like a style, or especially based on your recent pieces on your website and the art in PETROL HEAD. But like, I mean, it's a lot different for you to start drawing something, right? And then get a chunk of the way through it and be like, oh wait, like maybe I need to, because that's a big deal for you to like go back and change something, or even like change a viewpoint or a camera angle, or how you view and draw out and map the scene. Like Is that kind of like, do you do like a bunch of like loose layouts and stuff before you tighten it up? Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I was going to say actually, like there is a sort of similarity there, in that like I've been kind of making up Petrol Head as I go along. So if you really pay attention, you'll spot that his arm changes throughout, depending on how is best to draw it, or I'll find out, a better way to draw certain things that makes the mechanics work better, and then I'll just change it from that point. And as long as it's not too far wrong in the earlier pages, I won't go back and change it. But yeah, no, we do go through quite a lot of processes. So I'll do a very rough layout and send that to Rob, and then I'll pencil it and letter it, and we'll work it out from there. And normally, yeah, they kind of, as you say, it's a pain in the ass to have to redraw something if you've already finished it. But I don't just go in on that drawing. I'll think about it a few times, and it'll almost always change a little bit from the very first pencil.
There's not many. I think that from the roughs you sent through, once or twice is like, can we have another go at that panel? But
yeah, it's certainly not when I've kind of
it's
got
there.
on with it. Yeah. But then and we've sort of changed it a few times where we've found that I've come to draw something, it hasn't quite worked, and changed the script a little bit as well. Like the sort of the last panel of page 3 we kind of redid the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, it's kind of.
But I've literally spent 10 minutes on the iPad. It wasn't like a big deal to redraw it.
Yeah, another thing from a writer's point of view, sometimes you go, no, that works, and then you see it drawn, and it doesn't, and it's not the artist's fault. It's just you need to see it to kind of go, it doesn't work, and so then you pivot and you kind of think of a different way to hit the beats you actually are trying to hit there.
That's one of the nicest things about working in this way, though. Really, is we've got time to sort of do that little bit of back and forth, and again, that's why I always letter my pencils before I ink it, just to check that it all sort of fits and works nicely, and you can really see how it reads. And yeah, it's nice to just work together and adapt. Sometimes the pictures will do the job of the words, and you don't need them, and vice versa. Sometimes something needs more explanation because you can't draw it how you want it.
Yeah, and that's when I mean, not particularly the case with Petrol Head, but that's like, I hate that as a writer, when you get the pages through and you go, this isn't coming across at all, and then you have to write horrible exposition. You kind of go, because it's just not there on the page, and suddenly you go, oh no, I'm being a bad writer now. But sometimes you have to do it. I think the storytelling in Petrol Head has been so good visually that I'm able to sort of, I don't have to do any of that stuff. So you're able to kind of suddenly it's always the way. If a visual storytelling is really strong, then that makes you a better writer, because you don't have to write the clunky stuff.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and you don't want a lot of exposition boxes like blocking this fucking art. Like, right. You want minimal words when you really need them, and when the dialogue really matters, right? Because it's like, it's a sin to the readers if you're blocking Pye's art.
I read. I've got a comic here. I'm not going to show it out of respect to the creators, but I read last week where the art was beautiful. It was just so much text covering up the art, and I was like, "What are you doing? It's just this is great stuff. You can pull back from a lot of this." But
yeah, it's one thing, because I know like some comic book readers like act like they hate reading, right? Because they're just like, oh, dialogue, like what? Why are you making me read a book? And I'm not like that, right? If the writing's good and the dialogue's good, like, hit me with it. I love it, right? But I'm with you. Like, if you have to control it in a sense, and you have to. A lot about comic book writing, and I learned this I got a piece published in an anthology, and I only got 2 pages, and it was fucking writing a 2-page story that like tells a story is hard, right? It's hard, and it's just like I kept like the introduction was too long, and then like I finally hit me, and I was like, you don't have time for an introduction. You have to start where it matters. But I went to college and dropped out of grad school and stuff, and I had a lot of creative writing classes, and that's one of the main things that they teach you in all these classes is condense, right? It's just like eliminate those useless words, eliminate those useless phrases, right? It doesn't do anything but like bog the story down, and if you're trying to like emulate like the loftiness of a great creator or something, like people don't fucking want that, right? Especially if it's someone who wrote 50, 60, 70 years ago or something, right? Like it's they want like modern narratives move faster, right? I mean, look at manga, which is a titanic industry, right? And much more tied into culture, I think, than Western comic books are. But those, those volume, like you buy a 180 page volume of manga and you can read that in less than an hour, right? Maybe even less than that, if it's real good, because it's just like they move, and like the big fighting manga like Dragon Ball Z, and it's like these like several books like span the length of a single fight, and it's just like how they move and progress, and it's very quick and it's very snappy. And I felt that way with Petrol Head. It almost, I mean, just because I liked it so much, but it was like I was bummed when it was over. It was so easy to read, but even with the extra pages, like your pacing and your timeliness and everything is just like it moves so damn quickly, and it's like greasing a slide and dumping yourself in KY and you're sliding down it easy, right? That's the weirdest analogy I could have come up with to say that, but it just, there's no friction at all. There's no, once you start, you go right through it. And I was like, man, I was bummed it was over. I was like, especially because when it's digitally, you're not looking at the page count and you can't feel it, right? You can't look and be like, oh, I still have 20 pages left in my right hand, and it's just like, so you're like, oh shit. And then finally you're like trying to swipe and it doesn't swipe anymore because the PDF's over. And you're like, no, like, and I had that reaction when I was reading this book. But yeah, you guys feel like you're both, at the top of your craft right now, honestly. Like, Rob, I've read some of your stuff before, and I enjoy your work, but like this feels a little different than some of what I've read from you in the past.
It's kind of there's an approach to, I think it's partly going in. We wanted, you said about manga, we just wanted that accessibility about this. So you kind of write it in a way which we didn't want to sort of like go heavy with lots and lots of text. It's kind of, it's meant to sort of flip. It's a racing book. It's got to go at pace. And if you start writing action sequences, like, a sequence, like, you see the car's foot on the pedal, wheel being turned, that's another panel, gear stick, that's another panel. These things flip by. You can use up a lot, for a sort of cinematic action sequence can very, very quickly take up a bunch of pages in a comic, But and I'd be hesitant to write that style if I didn't know who I was writing it for, because Pye is so good at those sequences that it just works, So, but yeah, it's partly going in and wanting this to be a comic that anyone can read if you're like a 13-year-old kid or something. So that's the pacing has very much got that in mind. We wanted it to be very accessible to as many people as we could get to.
Yeah, I feel like if you've got eyeballs, this book's for you. I mean, it's just damn good. Now, I have a question for you, Pye. I've heard before, I've heard cars and horses are like an artist's worst nightmare, right? They're like the hardest things to draw, and people that put them in the script are assholes and no one wants to deal with them. But you make cars look easy, man. You make these, they are just screaming on the pavement. The tires are screeching. The exhaust is burning, right? The rubber's burning. They're drifting, the acceleration, everything moves. It moves like at a breakneck pace, and you can feel it. And that's when you know you're a fucking damn good artist, right? Because that's one of the hardest things in comics, I think, is that you have these static images, right? We're not in Harry Potter, the pictures don't move, right? So you have a static image, but you have to make it seem like it moves from panel to panel, and it has to ping from the page to our minds, and the reader and the audience makes that movement and sees it, but your art has to generate that momentum, which you just seem to do effortlessly, which is like kind of rude to all the other artists in comics.
Trust me, it's not effortless. I do agonize over it quite a lot.
Good. I'm glad you're sweating over it, because it really does seem, I'm sure it's a ton of work, but you just nail it so well on the page. It seems like it's second nature to you. Do you just like drawing cars? Because I know like the series on your website is very automobile centric. Like, has that always been something you were like into as an artist?
Yeah, I kind of to be honest, it's people that I find hard. Like cars are made of blocks and circles and stuff, and computers can help me quite a lot with that kind of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I like drawing cars, and I spent a couple of years drawing a lot of like fine art oil paintings of cars and stuff, where you couldn't really stretch it out and kind of blur the edges and get a lot of energy and things into it. And I kind of wanted to transfer a little bit of that into the art on this. Although I kept it very graphic and it's the solid outlines. It's not like I'm painting it. It's not all blurred in that way. I wanted to kind of find a way to translate that movement into a 2 or 3 solid blocks of colors. But no mechanics. I've got a this is a while ago now, but I did engineering drawing at school.
Okay.
So I got an A level in sort of doing all the isometric stuff for engineering. Both my grandparents were engineers, so I've sort of obviously I've got the genes for drawing. I don't know, technology, cams, that kind of thing.
So you were born to make this fucking comic. Like you were raised. Everything has led to this moment.
They've all funneled down. Yeah.
That's too cool, man. I can't, again, guys, I can't say how much I love this book and how excited I am to see it progress in the new issues. And also very excited for people to get it, for reviewers to get it. I'm excited to see what my press buddies think about it. You did, in my opinion, you did a hell of a job. Honestly, I get a lot of free books. I'm very, very lucky. I'm on a lot of press lists and I get to read stuff, a lot, and I get to talk to great people a lot. But I do see a lot of the new stuff coming out, and this sticks out. And you guys really did that premiere issue the right way. And I know they're hard to pull off. And so I really hope you guys know that you did it. You did it the right way. And I see you sticking out on the shelves. The covers themselves are going to pop on the shelves. They'll stick out next to anything they put next to it. So, I mean, I feel like people walking by, they'll be drawn to it, because the PDF Rob sent me had a lot of the other variants in there. They're all absolutely gorgeous. Those same colors that just like that scream at you. Like they literally, like when you walk by it, this inanimate object yells at you to grab it, look at it, and be a part of it. And so I'm really excited for you guys. I hope you're excited too. I feel like you guys are excited. Like I'm reading it. It feels like you guys have a good chemistry and you're having a lot of fun with this book. I think that's part of the magic happening in these pages too, is you guys are loving it and having fun with it.
Oh yeah, Matt, it is like, I'm having the most fun of any job that I've had in a long time. Like the reason, like I was saying earlier, like I did those car posters in lockdown because I was utterly bored of all the jobs I've done, and that's turned into this and another job and they're just creatively satisfying, and that brings out the best in you. Like they're kind of
nice.
And I just, I hope that what you say happens. People will pick it up, because again, going back to what you said at the start, like I haven't done a huge amount of stuff, and it'd be very lovely for it to like make an impact.
I mean, honestly, man, I would question if like this starts coming out and your inbox doesn't fill up. Like I feel like people are going to see this and be like, well, we got to hire this guy. We got to get him to do a cover. We got to get him to do. I mean, I would, if I was steady making comics, I'd hang up on Rob right now. Me and you'd be talking, signing a contract, dude.
Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna ditch this loser as quick as I can.
Yeah.
What is going on here? I see where this is going.
No,
hey,
Rob,
somebody's get a room.
Rob, I did, because this is going to air, like it's just before October when we're talking, but this will air next week as the October settles. It's my favorite time of year because my birthday is on the 27th. I love Halloween. I love spooky season. I love horror. I love horror movies. It's just like, and I love it when like Kansas City gets cooler, and I like it when I'm a big guy, right? I sweat. So like I would much rather be cold than hot. So it's just, I love fall in the spooky season and yada, yada, yada. Basically, I just wanted, because I'm getting to talk to you, and I know this book is a little bit older, but holy shit, if it didn't like live in my mind rent free when I think of horror comics, is your book at AWA Out. And it was so smart. And, in a world that's full of vampire fiction and a lot of it's great, right? But a lot of it's not. And you like zombies, right? Like when you write about zombies, you can't be The Walking Dead. You have to be something different. You have to put a fresh spin on it and do something weird and stick out. Very similar in vampire fiction. And boy, do you do that, sir. I got out from AWA right now. I mean, you could buy it on Amazon for $10. And like, you could have your comic shop order it too. That's probably the better way. But I mean, we all use Amazon, even though we're supposed to say we don't. Anyway, you get it right now. The trade is out, and it will make your spooky season better. But before we kind of just talk about it real quick, there was a moment in the back matter, and you wrote a little essay after, and you said part of the job as a writer is to just put your characters through hell.
Yes.
And you were like, what better hell is there than a fucking Nazi castle POW camp, right? That's already hell, right? That's already the worst place you could ever be, right? And then what do? You throw a monster. You throw a monster in there. And but the idea of like the elements that you play with of control, of repression, of being locked in a cage, both with the monster, with the POWs, and then also like the repressed, being locked inside yourself, how we deal with like these gay men in a time where like you can't come out, or you just literally can't, like they will come for you like a monster yourself, right? Which they still do today, unfortunately, just not as intensely. But there was just so many wonderful moments in this book, juxtaposed with fucking gruesome, gnarly art, right? And just like really, really bloody, intense panels. When you were writing that, like, did you know? Were you like, yeah, this I'm gonna fucking kill it in the horror genre on this one, like, or were you like, were you nerd? Because in some elements it is kind of like experimental, like just the title, like you said, like Out. That title means so many things, right? And how that goes with the characters, just like where'd this idea come from, basically?
It was an idea I had a long time ago, and it just seemed like it's one of those elevator pitches. It felt just so right for Hollywood. It's sort of like The Great Escape, but there's a vampire in the camp with the prisoners, and it was. So it's the last days of the war, and the Nazis are desperate, and they dig up a vampire, and they figure, well, we're losing, so we're gonna if we can use this thing, it's a weapon that could change the entire face of the war, but we need to test it first. So they stick it in a prisoner of war camp to see if they can control the vampire and let it feed on the prisoners. So these poor sort of Allied prisoners, the British and the Americans, who were stuck in this camp. They were trying to escape anyway, but now they really have to escape because they're getting picked off one by one. So it's kind of like, it's a bunch of films I love, like Alien and John Carpenter's The Thing, and it's kind of that, and The Great Escape, and Where Eagles Dare, and then I just thought it would be you're always trying to come up with like a hook, or a character that people haven't seen before, because we've all seen prisoner of war camps. Is like movies. Is The Great Escape's the most famous, but it's like Billy Wilder's did a great one as well. But I thought, well, do you know what? What if you were a gay man in that camp? And I thought that would be a really interesting lead, because then he can't. The out to the title has got a double hook to it, and he's repressed, and also he's a Native American, a code talker, which these guys existed. They took a bunch of sort of I think they were Navajo, if I remember right, and they took them over on D-Day because basically the Nazis had broken the Allied codes, but they couldn't break the Navajo language. It was just totally sort of foreign to them. So I thought, well, lead character who's a Navajo code talker, and he's gay, and he's stuck in this terrible predicament. And it was, I love the era. I'm a big history buff. I'm a big World War II buff. So it was all a bit of a dream job for me. And then, you try and put the characters through hell. And I think horror is a genre where literally you put them through hell to see what they're made of. And you just sort of, it's a great little book. I think yes, that more people should have read it. I thought it, with fantastic art as well. But
oh my God, Conrad's art's amazing, amazing and brutal. And then also, I like like petrol heads, you are good about dispersing these little touching moments, you know, and like petrol head in out, it juxtaposes against the scenery and the art and the terrifying images that we get, right? And but it's very interesting how you do that, how you're able to just like put these little bits of humanity in there, these little tiny touching moments that, which I think, you know, great horror needs, right? Great genre fiction needs that. You have to remind people of humanity in order to take us away from it and put us into these like weird places.
And also you've got to, you know, whether it's petrol head and it's a like a thriller, or it's, you know, a futuristic thriller, or it's horror, you know, you've got to make the readers care about these characters before you do terrible things to them. Because if you turn the page and something bad has happened to a character you've just invested yourself in, you're like, oh no. And that's what we're all trying to do, right? We're trying to we're trying to get sort of the readers to actually care about these people and these characters, no matter what scenario or world we put them in.
I love that heartlessness of horror too. Like you're like, I got to make people love this guy. I got to make people laugh at this guy's jokes. And then I got to make him cry when we rip his fucking throat out in 5 pages, you know, and it's just like, but I love that. And it works so well. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read this book yet, but the final page of Out is so beautiful and so like, wow, man. Like it brought a fucking tear to my eye, dude. I was like, fuck you, Rob. This is not the book that you're reading that you're like, I'm going to tear up in the end of Out, this vampire novel, this vampire World War II fiction piece where like the vampire is not like a sexy vampire either, right? Like he's old and mean and evil, and he comes from a darkness that like real vampirism should stem from, like very akin to like the Nosferatu films that, you know, they're walk on 2 legs and have arms and a head and a face, but they're not human at all, right? And so you really bring that abhumanity, gothic horror into it. And so anyways, like when I'm reading this, I'm like, yeah, I'm emotionally safe. I'm going to be fine. And you just fucking wreck me in the end. Oh my God. And so like, just the emotions that play out. And I really like, I encourage people like just to see that final page, that final splash page. I haven't seen a lot like that in comics either. And it really hit me, and it made it a very, very special book. And with it being October, and with everybody, you know, you're all going to be online looking like, what are the best horror movies to watch? What are great horror comics to read? What should I do for the spooky season? Blake's Buzz is telling you right now, start by pre-ordering petrol heads. That's not horror. That's different, but you still need it. You still need to do that. Like, just listen to me, listen to Rob, listen to Pye. It's a real good book. You need to pre-order it. But that book doesn't come out for a hot minute or a couple weeks or 3 weeks or so. So
November the 8th, I think.
All right. So yeah, it doesn't come out even until after October. So pre-order it. You got a minute. While you're at the shop, see if they've got AWAs out. If they don't, tell them to order it. If they don't want to order it, you can get it from numerous bookstores. It's there. It's ready for you, and it's it'll give you a nice little jolt to your spooky season. I can't recommend it enough. It's just very good.
I'm really glad it worked for you. I was just seeing if I got a copy here so I can show. There you go. That's what it looks like.
Nice.
Tim Bradstreet cover, which is and lots of Nazis die in it. So everyone's
and Nazis die in it. Which who doesn't love a bunch of fucking Nazis dying? Now, Pye, are you like, what's the spooky season like for you, bud? Like, are you into horror, or like, are you like, no, I like drawing fast cars and crazy worlds and like, what's that stuff like for you?
I'm not a big horror guy, to be honest. I did a comic years ago called Ram of the Dam, which is like a sort of vampires and werewolves fighting, and there's a lot of blood and all that kind of thing. But it's not really my thing, to be honest. I prefer bright pink and flowers and tires.
it's okay to be wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. What a way to end it. Like when I'm like, oh, it's the spooky season. Like, oh yeah, Rob has this great horror. Pie, what do you think? I don't really fucking dig it, man.
Oh no, I'm sold on it. I'm not ready. I might go and pick up a copy.
No, you're good. You're good, man. You're good.
We're just going to go back and eat our meals in the bath after this. So
yeah.
That's right.
take your fucking bath ham into the get out of here, Pye. No. Well, guys, I've kept you for over an hour, and it was a great pleasure to talk to you both. Rob, like I said, I've followed you a while, man. It was a very cool feeling when you hit me up wanting to come on my show. One of those cool comic book press moments that you don't expect all the time, right? And Pye, it was so great to meet you and get introduced to your art. I meant every damn word I said, man. The industry would be foolish not to try and snag you up after looking at these pages and getting a look at this book, man. It's I want to see your name on more titles. I want to see what you can bring into this industry and shake things up with your color palette and character designs. And it's wild to see. Now, the polite host that I am, I would like to give you guys just a moment. If you've got like websites or Substacks or newsletters or wherever, like, let everybody know where the best place is to keep track of you and where we can follow you and all that good stuff. Pye, you want to start that off?
Yeah, I'm at Pye Parr on most things. However, we do have a Petrol Head website, which we'd like to pimp. So petrolheadcomic.com and at Petrol Head Comic, we're on all the things. But yeah, because, you know, it'd be very nice to work and do lots of other comics, but actually what I'd quite like to do is do 50 issues of Petrol Head first. But in order for that to happen, people need to go and buy it and care, you know. So
yeah, and if anybody out there, you know, runs sort of, you know, toys and collectibles and wants to do Petrol Head figures for us and everything, we'd be very...
Yeah, if anyone works for Hot Wheels and wants to do a range of cars, that'd be good.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I'm at I think I'm on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called today. I'm at Rob Williams 71, and on Instagram I'm at Rob Williams 1971. And but petrolheadcomic.com and Petrolhead, you know, we've set up accounts everywhere. So people should come along and tell us what they think.
Awesome. Yeah. Follow these accounts, follow these guys. They're both worth keeping track of. And like, tell your shops you want Petrolhead #1. Like, don't even tell them #1. Tell you what the whole fucking series right now. Put that shit on your pull. I have a hard time thinking that how good issue 1 is. Like, we'll get issue 2 and be like, wow, they really shit the bed on this one. I don't see that happening.
It's better, mate. I promise. It's better.
Yes, it's better. Even. So yeah, tell your shops to put the whole thing on your pull list. I promise you're not going to regret it. Rob, Pye, again, it was so great to get to talk to you guys and meet you both. And I'm so excited for future issues and to see what you guys are doing. Everybody who's out there listening, thank you so much. You know, we love you. Remember to love more, hate less, and read comics. We'll be back with another episode. And as always, I appreciate our listeners, our subscribers, everybody, but I also, because this is what I do, I got to be annoying and remind you, like, hey, subscribe to the Substack, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, no one ever fucking told me that getting big on YouTube was so goddamn hard. Just subscribe. I got cool guests. Talk about cool comics. I'm fucking hilarious. Subscribe to my YouTube. Like, what do I do? I got to pay you guys? I'll give you $1 if you subscribe to my YouTube. I'm just kidding. I don't have any money. Anyways, everybody, we'll see you on the next episode. And the guys, thank you so much. And unless you have anything else you'd like to shout out, I'll set you free.
No, just thank you very much. It's lovely to meet you, and I'm glad you liked it as much as you did.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for your enthusiasm.